Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance episode review. This one's going to be for K410, Operation Beifong, Episode 10 of Book 4. And yeah, this was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. Near complete focus on obviously the Beifong stuff, with only a little bit of Korra, which was pretty interesting because the way that the episode description went, I almost expected there to be a little bit more Korra, but I assume that is still going to be a plot point heading into the next episode, and I still think that what we did get of the Korra section was actually really interesting in terms of setup for what's going forward, setup for I suppose that human spirit alliance that may be a thing, but yeah, lots of stuff going here. Character, great action, and most importantly, I think probably set up for what exactly is happening going forward with the main plot, and that obviously being Kuvira is going to attack Republic City, as I think many people speculated. But it's nice to finally get what exactly is happening there. So yeah, let's get into this specifically. I'll get it out of the way at the start so I don't annoy anyone, but you all know how much I like the carrot guy. He came back 10,003 years later, and he's finally back. I was so happy to see Carrot Guy again on screen. Like, I was just like, okay, spirits, 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 and then just like right there at like the front of the screen, just like Carrot Guy's just like, yes, he's back. I'm so glad that they brought him back and stuff like that. It was so cool to see him, even though he didn't really do anything. He just stood there. Still pretty awesome just to see him again. So yeah, that's my typical Carrot Guy madness out of the way. So let's get into the whole remaining 99.9% of the episode. I'll start with the Korra stuff. That was interesting. Obviously, you had the meeting with Raiko and stuff like that, and he straight up wants Spirit Vine weapons. He wanted Asami and Varric to add Spirit Vine weapons to whatever they were making, and they just agreed that that's not what they were going to do. That they just don't agree that that should be the case. No one should have that technology, and he argued with it. So you really see that, the kind of flaws, I suppose, in Varric's ideas, and that like that's not what Varric and Sammy want to do. But the plan is to make some sort of a kind of dragonfly type robot thing that flies around. So that should be pretty cool when the finale comes around. What exactly is going on? Is that the Colossus that we heard about? I doubt it. But either way, that's the initial plan. Um, Wu has a big moment where he decides, he basically proposes the idea that maybe they should evacuate the other citizens from the city to save them from being hurt, and everyone's just like, whoa, okay, that's a good idea, we'll do that, Wu, thanks, you're going to supervise this. And then afterwards he's just like, yeah, I did it to get in better with Korra. But still, the fact that he actually proposed that idea shows some growth in his character. Now, where exactly does it come from? It's probably Mako, combination of Mako and the fact that he's staying with Mako's family, and so he's closer to the people and understands how important it is to keep them safe. They didn't specifically say that in the episode, but I get that that's maybe the idea that they're going for, that the more time he spends around the people, the more time he comes to realize that they're just as important as, he is, as like the prince to be. But yeah, there was that. And then Korra goes into the spirit world to try and so I assume the spirit vines actually attacking people is not a thing anymore. They didn't really make it very clear why exactly the spirits are leaving Republic City. Like, do they know an attack is coming? Do they know that like they're going to be maybe involved in this battle, or what? Or is it because the spirit vines is still actually a thing? That was a little bit confusing to me, why exactly they were retreating from the city. Um, but the idea that Korra goes into the spirit world is that she's trying to get the spirits to also help um, defend the city, because they both live there together in peace. So it's a common kind of it makes sense, like what she was planning to do, because I think a lot of people at this point in time were beginning to believe that this is maybe what they're going to do. The spirits and humans come together in the big final battle, something which Kuvira completely didn't do, and something the Korra wants to do. Um, So yeah, she gets in there. None of the spirits are listening to her really, and finally she gets one to, I suppose, talk to her. And what you really get from this, I think, is this kind of this sense that a lot of the spirits have is that everything they say it as if it's like fact. They're always correct. The humans are never right. When in this situation, I definitely think Korra's correct, and that she's not just trying to band up this army to take on Kuvira, acting like Kuvira. That's not what it's about. I don't think for Korra. She just thinks that, look, you guys have lived for years in Republic City. You've seen that not all humans are bad. You've lived here peacefully with us because of the decision I made. Um, this is some of your guys' home. Shouldn't you want to protect it rather than just remove yourselves from the conflict and go back into the spirit world where you avoid it and then come back whenever everything is done? Like, the idea is basically that, do they even care about where they live? And that's a big thing that it was explored a little bit in the Rift as well. This idea that Lady Tianhai in that series was one of the first spirits to actually like really connect with a place that she watched over, and rather than just accepting that it's going to be the same, she actively helped the humans to change it because she really admired that in humans. Um, and she was actually willing to become a human and die to get that sort of relationship. Um, Yet these spirits here, especially that kind of dragon kind of guy one, what he basically talks about is that you're just trying to be like Kuvira, create a war and stuff like this. We're not involved in this, and they leave. Um, but that's definitely not what Korra is looking for. It really, for me, the way I took this was that the spirits are definitely kind of. It's not the Korra's not at fault here at all in asking them. It's the spirits at fault because they're actually unwilling to do this for whatever reason. That they just think themselves above conflict and won't get themselves involved. It's a really interesting dynamic that I hope is going to be explored in the next episode, because the Korra section of this episode does kind of end in the middle of a kind of scene, and what exactly is Korra going to do next? Obviously, there's been a recent kind of increase in people going like, wait, what about Ko? Is Ko going to teach her like the location of some ancient spirit? There are some spirits out there who do have connection to humans. The likes of Heibai, maybe the Mother of Faces. That would be a really cool reveal if she was there. Painted Lady, those type of characters, ones that we've met before that kind of were a bit more friendlier than some of the other ones. So that would be cool. And I suppose as well, like, you have characters like Carrot Guy, who obviously, even though I kind of made a joke about how much I like him, he was actually one of Wan's friends, and this is the current Avatar. Is he not willing to help Wan? It's just a general thing of the spirits think themselves above everything and don't actually want to get themselves involved in the fight, and it just comes across as if they're running away from everything just because they think they're above everything. So that's an interesting dynamic. I hope that gets explored in more detail, and I'm really excited to see what that is. But the rest of the episode was obviously Lin, Opal, and Bolin met up with Toph, and they went to rescue the rest of the Beifongs, and also ends up saving Zhu Li and destroying, or at least halting, the production of this spirit weapon. I don't think they full on just kind of get rid of it, but at the very least they halt it to the point where there's going to be a delay on that spirit weapon coming into action, but it's definitely still in play, I think, going forward. So yeah, one of the big plots throughout the episode is obviously Lin and Toph meeting up, meeting up again. That was a big one because we've been waiting since I think it was Old Wounds. I think it was the second Beifong episode in book 3. So we've been waiting since then to get this, and we've had little hints obviously with Toph appearing in book 4, and then we finally get it here. And I think it worked pretty nicely because you had the initial kind of surprise, like Toph appears out of nowhere, and they're just, the two of them are just kind of like, hi, like, oh wow, you're here, and they just kind of go, hey chief, to each other. But then after this, you kind of see that Toph is just kind of like, oh yeah, I left that in the past. Toph is acting almost the exact same way that Sue acted when Lin arrived, and that Sue and Toph have both left all of these issues in the past without actually having dealt with it with Lynn. Like, it's okay to put the things behind you when the person's not there, but when they're there, you can't just say, "Oh, I got by them by myself. You weren't even involved. Sorry." And so that's what's really dealt with in this episode, in a similar way to the Sue Lynn relationship back in book three. Um, what I really like is that, you really see Lynn angry at all of this stuff. That Bolin's asking these questions because he's the one who kind of like doesn't have any of these issues with Toph. He's just happy to be there. He knows that there's a lot of mysterious stuff about Toph, and is just asking her questions. And he to ask the question, "Who's Lynn's dad?" And she just says, "What was it? The name? Your dad's a man named Kato or something like that." And yeah, it didn't work out. He was nice, but it didn't work out. And you're just like, "Whoa, that was a dismissal, okay, of that." But so yeah, we find out that it's a character that we don't know yet, that we've never met this guy. Makes sense. We don't know who Sue's father is still. Maybe Sue is a known character. Sue's father is a known character, but for Lynn, it's just some random character, and I suppose ultimately we don't need to know who this guy specifically, really, because he wasn't a part of Lynn's life. Even though Lynn specifically says in this episode that she really wished that she had a father figure in her life, but didn't because of obviously Toph's issues. And then ultimately, you kind of see that Toph does come back and does help her family, even though she kind of just wants to save the family, like escape, and doesn't want to do anything else. She doesn't want to get involved in all of this other sort of stuff, like saving Julie. She doesn't want to get involved with taking out the Spirit Vine laser. Doesn't want to fight Kuvira. All of these little things that the rest of her family wants to do, but Toph is kind of like that little bit disconnected from the world that she's not willing to do that anymore. And again, it was this interesting dynamic that even though Toph is the older character, she is the one character from the like Avatar: The Last Airbender group who in many ways has changed the most, but also at this moment in time is probably the most flawed of the older characters in terms of like she's got these issues still and like these things holding her back. And you kind of get that in this episode with just in general how everyone around her is like saying, "Okay, we have to go save Julie. She was lying all along. You said it yourself." And Toph is just like, "No, we can't do it." Until final moment she comes back and kind of realizes that, these are my daughters. I have to put my life on the line for them. And as much as she's kind of realizes that, like, I helped you guys, but as much as I hate to admit it, I am getting old now. My back hurts. I can't get involved in this sort of stuff. So I'm going to leave it to you going forward. So if that's Toph's remaining involvement in the series, I'm kind of fine with it. Just leaving it off here. The situation with Lynn is resolved with that really nice scene at the end where she just kind of says that, I admit I wasn't a great mother, and I probably should have been better, but I'm happy just knowing that the way things worked out, I have two great daughters, and I'm happy to put my life on the line for them. That worked out well because it's not a full recovery, and you get the sense that obviously if everyone survives through this, there is going to be some more moments of kind of healing to come. But for what it was, it worked quite nicely, just to have them kind of come back together as a family. It was really nice. And then even just some of the other dynamics in the episode, like Opal and Toph, you can tell there's a pretty nice relationship there. Opal and Batar Senior, it was just kind of like, "Hi mom, how are things?" He's like, "I told you not to call me that." So obviously maybe she doesn't like him so much, but I'm not really sure. But that was an interesting dynamic. And then I suppose over the course of the episode you have Bolin and Toph, the whole fanboy relationship, and she's impressed with him at certain points, but also not impressed with him because she's not the sort of character to handle that like really crazy type of attitude, which is actually pretty interesting given that like a lot of people make the comparison between Bolin and Sokka, and even though Bolin is arguably more kind of on the silly side, Toph still can't handle like Bolin being that degree of that type of character. And yeah, but she is impressed by the fact that he can do lava bending. And again, they bring up this idea that Bolin can do metal bending if he applies himself more, or if he tries hard enough. So I'm not really sure what they're going with Bolin metal bending. Like, is it going to be some big thing in the finale to give him his big moment that his lava bending isn't working, his earth bending isn't working, he has to use metal bending to get out of the situation, and he finally does it. Is that going to be the case? I'm not really sure, because would that make him the only earth, metal, and lava bender in the world? Because that would be a really cool thing to give Bolin at the end of the series. But again, the only reason I'm really thinking that is because it was specifically brought up. Like, you had no reason to bring that back up, given that Bolin now has lava bending. Yet they made a deal saying you nearly everyone can do metal bending if they kind of connect enough with their element. So that's a cool dynamic. And yeah, just I loved all the references back to those episodes 5 and 6 from book 3 with the Beifong stuff, that Lin and Sue got over their issues, and like Toph thinks because that's happened that she's cool with Lin. Again, showing that in general her kind of rule of thumb is, like, if something bad has happened and time passes, leave it in the past and go on from there without actually addressing that things happened. And just her admitting at the end of the episode that, look, I wasn't a great mother, but you turned out well regardless. Like, it was a big moment, so that worked well. And then the rest of the episode is just like really, really good action. A few nice character moments as well, but some really awesome action. Like, Sue versus Kuvira was an amazing kind of metal bending fight. On top of the spirit laser cannon, that was great. Some really cool stuff there. Kuvira making the kind of sword thing out of the various kind of chevron things on her armor, and then Sue just making some like makeshift armor for herself, because obviously she was just in prison. She doesn't have her usual gear on. That worked pretty well, and just really excellent showcase of people's skills going into the finale. What else? Sorry about that. There's all of the Beifongs doing some really cool stuff. Like Wei and Wing had this really cool moment where I don't have any idea which one is which. But anyway, one of them grabs their mother to save her from Kuvira. He kind of uses his metal cables to fly towards her, and then his brother grabs his cable to pull him in even quicker to avoid some attacks. That was a really cool sequence, because they create obviously the perimeter of Earth, and it really shows what you can do with earthbending, kind of more so than any other element, and that you can change the battlefield with earthbending, which you can't really do with many of the other elements. You could sort of do it with waterbending, but obviously, like just general big rock thing is probably more powerful than a big thing of ice. So that was pretty cool to see, just how much earthbending can do. Like, you can just create these defensive shields with metal bending. You can create armor. It was a really cool showcase of just earthbending full stop in this fight, and yeah, in general that worked out well. Other side of the episode, you had Julie and Batard Jr. working on the Spirit Vine weapon, and you find out this episode that Julie had gone undercover. She was trying to take down the full-on spirit weapon from the inside, so she basically acted to betray Varric. So that's a thing, that's a reunion that's going to happen at some point. And apart from like the kind of little silly moment of like, okay, you've taken the like, what was it called, a detonator pin or something like that, and then like I just kind of said to myself, she has it behind her back, doesn't she? Like, she could have just like taken it out and like threw it away, and she would have gotten herself out of that situation. But no, she just holds it behind her back, or like has it like in a pocket or something like that. It was just a little silly moment, but I understand why they needed to do it. They needed to have Kuvira find out that Julie was kind of betraying her, and the reveal to the audience for sure that she acted the kind of betrayal of Varric. So that was nice to see, and I suppose just the fact that Bolin does actually know Julie very well, and that once he finds out that she was lying, he knows for sure that she was just lying with what she did to Varric. And there's definitely a sense I get here that he's happy for Varric that he won't have to go through this betrayal, that it was actually just a lie. So that was a cool thing with all those connections, and so they go to save him. Another little point, we meet Opal's bison, who we get the name of the bison is called Juicy, and you get the little moment where Toph is just like, oh, you have one of these things too. I thought Opal was smelled bad enough, but this one obviously has like a nasal problem, all of the goo coming out of its nose. You can tell Opal loves the bison, but it's just kind of like initially she saw it being the kind of nasally one. Is just like, can I have a different one? But no, the thing is like the bison chooses you, and it's a connection forever. So I like that. Just that Opal has a bison of her own. It's nice to see that. Obviously, all the Beifong's escape, which is a big thing, and Toph, obviously, as I said before, decides that she's going to leave the final fight to the younger people, and she kind of says, "Don't tell Korra this, but my back really hurts after all that training." So that kind of works. It maybe sets up that maybe Toph will make one final appearance in the final battle, do something important, but I'd be happy if she didn't appear again because she had her big moment. The issue that kind of we needed Toph for, that being the issue with Lin, is resolved. So apart from her getting a big moment in the last fight, I don't think like it's completely necessary that we get Toph again. And who knows? Maybe they'll have an old masters moment where Zuko, Toph, and Katara arrive in the final battle. They each have like a big moment showing off their amazing skills in the final battle and leave. That they don't get killed or anything like that. They just have a Zhang Zhang Iroh moment in the finale. I think everyone wants that for Katara. I think everyone would like that for Zuko as well, just because in book 3 he felt a little underpowered just because of how like badly he lost to the members of the Red Lotus. And Toph, even though we know she's still powerful, I suppose it would be cool to get her a really strong moment. But yeah, just having her say to Kavira at the end of the episode that you give Metalbenders a bad name, and Kavira just kind of reacted like this, like whoa, Toph just said this to me. I don't think she really like is going to take it to heart or anything like that, but it was just interesting that she had nothing to say in response to this, and was just kind of like they're escaping. I can't do anything right now. That the first sign of like panic, I suppose, from Kuvira, that like she just couldn't stop this. That this rescue mission was going to work regardless of what she did. That was pretty nice to see. But yeah, what else is there? Just the action in this episode was really strong. Even the actual rescue, the kind of wooden cage suspended above everything, the really cool moments of just, swinging across, Bolin catching everyone was nice. One other thing, I suppose, Bolin and Opal are back together. She says, you're out of the polar bear dog house or something like that. So, and she kissed him on the cheek. So that was a nice resolution. Like they didn't need to drag this on any longer. It was fine that most of the characters were a little bit annoyed with Bolin in this episode, even Opal, but she realized how much he put himself on the line for other people in this thing, including his former comrade, who he really vouched for in their little group. That look, I know for sure that she is not who you think she is, and I really like that all this stuff just added together to make kind of Opal realize that as much as like he went on the wrong side, all of these characters were kind of pointing out that look, he did it for the right reasons. He had his heart in the right place. He was just misused, and in the end, Opal realizes that. So that's cool. That's resolved. Anything else in the episode? I'm trying to think. There was a lot of action, and I apologize for not like going through every single fight scene, but we'll do that on the podcast definitely on Sunday for this episode. But yeah, just briefly back to the chorus stuff. I really hope that that's kind of gets more time in the next episode. Just because it definitely felt like she was going to do something else in the spirit world, not just leave after that conversation she had with the spirits. Now, obviously that's a conversation I'm going to have to like watch again. I literally watched the episode like just before recording this. It's definitely a conversation I'm going to have to like look through again and really get down into the nitty gritty of what was actually said there. But I really enjoy the fact that this human spirit, I suppose differences in ideals is being explored, that a lot of humans will be willing to, like fight for their kind of place that they live in. But spirits don't seem to have that. And that's a thing that they feel like it makes them better than humans, but really it kind of shows that they don't care about other things that much, spirits, and it makes them just come across as kind of just really kind of like mean. that they're not helping anything, and that they just act like they're above everything, including just helping when they should help. And I suppose that's what the Avatar should inspire in people. That the Avatar inspires humans to kind of go down this right path, but can't seem to inspire spirits because of their attitude to things. And we've had multiple times in like both series, I think, including the comics, that the spirits have been shown to be a lot more human than they kind of tend to believe. Like Mother of Faces, she has no relationship with her son Ko. Lady Tianhai, General Old Iron in the Rift, really heavily showed this. That General Old Iron couldn't see the human side of the situation. Uh, Lady Tianhai completely understood the human side of the situation. Some really interesting dynamics to be explored, but I'm going to leave the video review there. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode. But yeah, for now, thanks for watching, and bye.